there is an ongoing trend that needs to be stopped, and it needs radical measures to be stopped. The trend says that you can spend a lot of as much money as you can in campaigns, and when you eventually get into the upper hierarchy of powers, you can maneuver your way to get all those money back. That is what results in a lot of people spending money in campaigns so that they can go to the highest offices in the government and they can engage in big scandals in order to get all this money. How would the support look like? I think it will primarily look like things like through investigations to make sure that we confirm that there is really a huge corruption, those kind of scandals. We make sure that it is something that the accuser is one who has really done it. And the death penalty is going to be what we are going to use to hedge against this corruption. What is the nature of this corruption? In the vast majority of instances, they are larger. We're not talking about corruptions like, oh, you gave a policeman this, so death penalty is so ridiculous. To be fair, it has to be huge. You are talking about huge governmental corruptions, often occurs in forms of scandals. These, governmental officials at the helms of affairs. Notice, panel, they already have money, they already have resources, they already have a lot of advantages, such as government gives them allowance, their housing, a lot of things. It means that for them, smaller monies is not what they are like after. They are really after big scandals, highest scandals of corruption. Why is it so terrible? Because of two things. One, it is most often intentional because that is literally the that just spend a lot of money in your campaign, whatever, you eventually get it in the end. Secondarily, it is highly malicious in the vast majority of instances. They know exactly what they are doing, they know it is the taxpayers' money, they know everything. But why is it bad? Because of three things primarily. One, that those taxpayers are persons who don't have the privileges, the resources, the access to a lot of their allowances and all those things that these officials who scam them are having. Secondly, these taxpayers have meager incomes like meager incomes, and they are just trying to contribute their quota so that government can build them hospitals and schools. But the third reason why it is bad is because the person who is engaging in this kind of corruption is directly breaching the social contract that says that people should pay taxes, and that money is going to be used to build hospitals and build schools for the children of these persons, these taxpayers. Thirdly, why it is then bad is on a state level, recognize that the reason why the state power principle has meaning is because everyone believes that it is through the state that they are able to have a lot of things, and they are able to obey the state laws, and they are able to allow themselves to be incarcerated because the state says so. In a world where someone corrupts a governmental official who is going against the state power principle, he's directly robbing the state out of its dignity. The state's dignity is in and out of itself is robbed because that person is a representative of the state. That person brings distrust to the state. So the person is one who robs the state of its what do you call it? The person is someone who robs the state of its dignity. It robs every taxpayer of their human dignity. I don't think this is very bad because it is an irreparable harm because the person most likely cannot pay it back. Even if the person will pay it back, notice panel that those monies were supposed to be pumped into social projects, pumped into building hospitals, pumped into building schools. It means that if they do these scandals and corruptions, those schools are going to be poorly built, those bridges are going to be poorly built. They could lead to a lot of things like collapse of the buildings, a lot of things because they took a lot of money out of it and they couldn't buy enough cement. But why is it terrible? Because of three things. One, we think that the outcome is that panel. The outcome is that there is this obligation that the state always has towards its persons, those who pay the tax, and the future generations. In a world where you engage in state corruption, those kind of things, you are robbing these infrastructures of being built. It means that the present people don't benefit, the future persons don't benefit. What are the methods of support then? One, on proportionality. We think that this is the highest assault that a person can person can ever do, a representative of the state most likely, defying the state itself, defying every other taxpayer, defying every other person. We think the death penalty is then proportional in terms of punishment because that is literally the highest form of the highest form of offense that a representative of state can or ever. We think one, the death penalty is proportional because most likely if you will say that, oh, we can just put them in jail. These guys have skilled lawyers, they have a lot of capital, they are already engaging in corruption and bribery, so it proves that they can do a lot of things. So they can escape the justice scenario, they go to the jail, they still bribe a lot of other persons. Even most persons, they just go to the jail because they are big guys, they just bribe the image and do a lot of other stuff they will not necessarily get the offense or they will not necessarily feel the punishment. We then think that the death penalty is the only proportional punishment that we can give them. Secondly, we think in terms of deterrence. In a world where it is now a trend for politicians to amass all this wealth and illegitimately, we think the only radical means to stop it in terms of deterrence is death penalty because every other person is afraid of death. They will never repeat it again. The utility is clear. We will see that we will have a lot of proper infrastructures because a lot of these scandals take away the tax money that is supposed to build hospitals and schools and a lot of things. If we then make sure that these scandals don't happen, we are able to then build these proper infrastructures, taking care of this generation and the future generation. It means that a large majority of the utility for this generation, the future generation, and every other person. The last thing is then closure. We think most people will then have closure. Why is it important? It is important because the outcome of people knowing that the governmental officials who are scamming them are still there is that the people will most likely distrust the state. This looks like there's going to be public outcries. This looks like the state will not have good optics in the international scale. This looks like a lot of hating against the state. The state itself deeming, seen as a corrupt, illegitimate state, denying it of a lot of international, gains in that particular regard. We then think that once we then do this metric of matching them with death penalty, persons know that so for example, the said King or whoever, he just let the death penalty affected the officials who engage in corruption, and that is why those states they have a lot of persons not engaging in corruption. It's the highest deterrence mechanism. It then brings justice and closure to the victims. The state itself is a victim panel. This is so important. The state itself is a victim, not only the taxpayers.
Thank you, PM, for that speech. Leader of the opposition when you're ready. Leader of the opposition.
Cool. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Am I audible? Okay. Let me just quickly time myself. Okay, let me time myself quickly. Okay, I'll start my speech in the next word. Mr. Chairperson, a civil society depends on us having the ability to actually learn from our mistakes and actually forming policies based on those mistakes and forming reforms, all of those things. Now, the problem with the solution offered by government is that it takes away from us that opportunity for us to be able to learn, that opportunity for us to have structures that are well reformed, right? Secondly, the death penalty is morally, legally, and socially unjustifiable punishment that one, violates human rights, secondly, perpetuates racial and socio-economic biases, and even more problematic is that it fails to deter crime as compared to life imprisonment. And therefore, we tell you this, that its continuous support is just a use of a relic that is outdated and a flawed justice system that prioritizes retribution over rehabilitation and proper justice. And this is what we want. We want proper rehabilitation and restorative justice that actually gives us an opportunity to reform the systems, not to come up with things that are relics of the past that only care about retribution and actually overlook the circumstances that actually cause all the corruption that currently exists within any system, whether it is government, whether it's within private organizations. This is the problem with the death penalty, right? Now, like we feel like generally when government supports something, it must support it under three conditions. One, it must address a social problem. We will show you throughout the speech how like they effectively fail to actually address the problem that they identify to us. Secondly, it must promote social justice. We'll show you how like they fail marginalized groups, and they fail on a third level, they fail to actually support the vulnerable population with that particular solution that they actually propose in this debate, right? There are four problems that we identify to you in terms of like the death penalty. One, in terms of deterrence, we tell you that they fail because generally death penalty around the world fails to actually deter people from actually committing all of those crimes. Right? We do not understand like the uniqueness of like a corruption where now we must say, hey, we have seen it being applied in other cases and it has not proven itself to be effective, right? What makes corruption so unique that it will actually work in corruption whereas it failed in other types of crimes, right? Secondly is like the issue when we like analyze like the complexities and the nuances that have to come with like corruptions and the individuals that are actually involved there. We tell you that there is a high risk factor of us actually executing people who are actually innocent, right? But even in instances where we actually like execute people who are like not necessarily innocent, we tell you that we are most likely going to execute people who are like not even largely involved in those businesses. You're going to just find yourself executing people who are just like the face of those popular like particular corruptions, but the mastermind behind those corruptions are most likely going to be left behind. So at the end of the day, you do not necessarily deal with the root cause, right? Because you've still left the people within those particular organizations that are actually like largely involved in that particular corruptions, right? Thirdly, panel, we tell you like there is no amount of like agency that can like ultimately like justify that it is correct to actually take somebody else's life, right? We feel like there are moral and ethical concerns that should exist within this debate, and we should like seriously consider them, right? No amount of agency can government actually give us and say, hey, we feel like we are justified to actually take somebody's life, right? More specifically, when you like realize that the chances of you actually killing somebody who's innocent is actually like very, very much big, right? But fourthly, like the lengthy process when it comes to like trying to determine whether somebody is like guilty and you're going to execute them, right? We must like understand the seriousness of corruption and how we deal with them, right? When you now subject these cases to like lengthy cost processes, you are delaying any sort of justice, and you find yourself not being able to like fully investigate and actually go to the root, because now you have people who are narrow-minded, just trying to prove that that particular individual that you found is actually guilty, and you're just like trying to like execute all of those people, right? So what are like the root causes that actually exist that we should actually find a solution that actually deals with those things, right? That is to say, why is it that people actually find themselves in a position where they actually like commit corruptions, right? We feel like, especially in poor countries, there are like economic incentives that actually exist because of the systems and how they're actually set up in most poor countries, right? Because of the existence and the continuous existence of those economic incentives, people will continuously like have the need to actually commit those particular crimes, right? Regardless of how many people who are corrupt you actually kill, at the end of the day, as long as the economic incentive in itself still exists, you still fail to actually address that particular issue, right? Secondly, the economic inequalities that actually exist, especially in areas where like you have things like your political instability. These are areas where you're most likely being at a high rate, right? Unless you actually deal with like what is the root cause of that particular instability, you simply picking somebody and killing them does not necessarily kill all of those people, right? So but like what kind of goods do we actually lose when we actually have a society that opt into like the death penalty for corruptions, right? Human life. We already told you there is no amount of just can give us to say, hey, it is actually okay for us to kill people, right? We feel like the human life is so precious and we should protect it, right? We are moral beings for a reason, right? We feel like we have like a moral high ground that currently exists. At the moment we engage in these things, we are now like fully giving government institution like sanctioning them to actually kill people willingly, right? Now here is a problem with that particular thing, because we look at the current existing systems in terms of like what's like problematic with the death penalty is like they exist like racial biases and socio-economic biases, right? So we ask ourselves, who, or in terms of like world into politics, the types of leaders who are most likely going to find themselves being executed, where do they come from, right? We realize that these are people from African countries, right? We tell you that you are now like giving the legitimacy to the Western countries to actually come into our countries and actually execute our leaders, because now you have legitimized that particular action, right? African countries are overly labeled corrupt and all of those things, right? The moment you now allow and support narratives that actually allow for those people to be killed, you give legitimacy to people who actually just want to come to our countries and plunder for our resources, right? But another thing that we actually lose, like in terms of like medical and legal ethics, right? We tell you that there is a lot of dilemmas that are involved within the medical industry, where like if you're a medical practitioner, you have to be for life, right? Like the sanctity of life is so important, right? To simply just like say, hey, you are corrupt and therefore we are going to kill you. We feel like it's something that is like very detrimental to society. These are ideas that we must hold on as society. Society should view life as something that is so sacred. We should go out of our way to actually protect life, right? Now, if corruption is so agent and so problematic, let us work on actually reforming the current existing problems, right? But even statistically speaking, life imprisonment has proven itself to be more efficient in terms of deterrence as compared to is not justified. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of the Opposition for that speech. PM, ready.
Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Give me a second. Wait, let me set my timer. All right. Sorry. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. The reason why open opposition is going to lose this debate is because they base this debate on mere sentiments without necessarily like engaging all the analysis coming from my partner on proportionality and retributive justice. I think it is fine. Like we have always done like death penalty in time immemorial. Like death penalty has always existed, and there is a reason for that, and there are reasons why we justify it. So if all these reasons meet those metrics as well, then it means it's justified for us to go with like death penalty in this particular scenario as well. Let's then go into another characterization that like buttresses our points on how corruption exists necessarily. Panel. In most states with corruption, what exists in those states is the state where like there's a chain of corruption, i.e., like even if you are coming like as a young individual and you want to make things better, but you have to go through like some people's reason. For you to be able to get to power, you have to like beg your knees and things like that. It means when you get to the power necessarily, these guys get to control you and actually control your actions. So eventually you also become corrupt at the end of the day. So it means there's a chain of corruption in society that we need to cut. And without cutting this chain of corruption, there's no way we can stop corruption because the existence of new people in governmental office and democracy is dependent on the existence of these particular people, and they will continue to control their affairs and continue to control corruption for a very long period of time. So it means we need to cut that chain necessarily, and the best way to cut that chain is through death penalty. I'm going to prove to you on extension why we necessarily protect democracy better on our side of the world. But before I go, I think I should give extraneous rebuttals to open opposition. Firstly, they talk about there are root causes of like all this corruption and things like that. They never showed why it is in like an exclusive thing on their side. How we cannot also like battle all these root causes necessarily, but we show you that this particular action is one that is only deserving of death because of the action that they cause in society. Number one, we think it's a form of self-defense for people like in minority states or even people in general to be able to like fight against their corrupt governmental officials. Because number one, my partner listed a lot of alternatives that is not probable in our world. This particular government control like the media, to control the narrative and everything. So it means people cannot use media to call them out. So it means a lot of times these guys are not held accountable for the things that they do in society. But secondly, this particular individual do not have the social capital to be able to sue this particular government to court and actually get a form of like justice in vast majority of instances. It means these guys just go away. Like even in the best case scenario that they go into prison at the end of the day, we are going to show you what that's not so efficient. So it means we need to give this like the society a form of like self-defense against this particular like perpetrators and this particular offenders in vast majority of instances. Let's then go in other like arguments. Number one, they talk about like the questions of human life. If someone rapes a kid or a pedophile kills a child or someone that like commits genocide, you will say, oh, we cannot kill him because we want to protect we want to protect the dignity of life or the preciousness of human life. Like there has to be a proportionality to the extent where the existence of your own life stifles on the existence of other lives or harms other people, you do not deserve to like hold that particular dignity of human life at that particular point in time. That is why we keep people that kill other people. That is why we kill people that commit genocide, all sorts of things like that. We think that's the only proportional like a consequence for their actions. At this particular metric, my partner showed you that these particular corrupt officials are ones that kill a lot of people because of their actions indirectly. I.e., if you fail to build hospitals, it means a lot of people are going to die because they fail to get primary health care. But secondly, like a lot of individuals in society are not able to get quality education, so it means they have to like resort to like things like violence in like to be able to get like form of like sustenance. It means they harm a lot of people on that metric as well. It means it directly boils down to your actions eventually and being able to provide like basic welfare for them. It means link it down, a lot of people who are in the minority set of life actually die for them to be able to like get like because of the like corruption like this particular individuals perpetuates necessarily. So it means this particular individuals kill other people, they affect the success of other people only proportional that they also lose their lives to the extent where other people's lives are at risk because of their existence necessarily. Why do we think life imprisonment cannot work? The thing is, even in the best case scenario, these guys get that life imprisonment, they always have the money to be able to always get like preferential treatment in prisons because they can always bribe all these like bodies and all these like prison officials and get preferential treatment. So all the rehabilitation that you want to work for, all like restorative justice that you want to work for, you are not gotten in vast majority of instances. The only way we can get them to justice is by killing them. Rehabilitation can fail, death penalty cannot fail. And that is why we think we beat on that particular metric and that particular way. Because in your best case scenario, it can fail, rehabilitation can fail, the guy can still come out of prison and still become like still remain corrupt necessarily. But on the other side of the moment they die, their corruption dies with them. I think that is actually just more important and that's much more efficient than life imprisonment. Other things like them paying like fines are not proportional to the harm that they have done in society because even in vast majority of instances you cannot track all the like money they have embezzled, you can only track like a little bit of them. So even if it seems like you tell them like to pay some fines, it is still not proportional to the harms that they have done in society to the extent that harms has actually stifled the lives and like the existence of some other people. Before I go on, if you have a pay I shoot. In three, two, one. Panel, let's then go into our extension and it's on democracy. Panel, the reason why we have so many coups in African states, like, is not because of neocolonialism or because there's some existence of like France or Germany in this particular state. No one cares if they are being taken care of, even if France exists in their state and is like taking away their resources. What most people care about is how they get cared for and how they get the basic welfare that they signed up for in the first place. To the extent where there is a lot of like these particular individuals not getting all these benefits or not getting all this particular like representation that they want with democracy, that's why they rebel against their state and rebel against their government and actually goes to like things like coup. Coups lead to less of life of lot of people, but secondly, it leads to like loss of structure of states, loss of like economical stability and all sorts of things like that. We don't think like if we do not like restore the trust of democracy in people, there is no way we can sustain democracy to the extent where people can actually do coups and actually just like overturn the states necessarily. If they want to promote democracy, due to the extremeness of the corruption that exists within democracy, we think for us to be able to restore that particular trust, you have to go extreme as well, and you have to go radical. And that's why we choose the death penalty because it is the only thing that people can see necessarily, that people can quantify, and people can necessarily hold on to as a form of like justice that they necessarily got in vast majority of instances. So it means we are able to create closure for a lot of people that have been harmed by these particular corrupt individuals, and they're able to get a form of like justice for themselves. But necessarily, in the vast majority of instances, we are able to promote and protect democracy and sustain the lives and structure and the economy of the state we are proud to propose.
Thank you, DPM, for that speech. DLO, when you're ready. DLO. DLO, is it Nathaniel? Okay. Opening opposition. Waiting for you guys.
My partner just left. Let me check what's wrong.
Okay, no worries. DLO, are you back? DLO. Sorry, I couldn't get that. Okay, we can't hear you. Is it possible that maybe you call your partner? I don't know if you're using a laptop and then you speak over the phone. Leader of the opposition. I don't know if you guys can maybe call and then speak over the phone. I was going back to Discord. CG, there's one speaker that can't hear on Discord.
Chair, am I audible?
Yes, finally, yes. That's good.
Oh, finally. Oh, okay. I am so sorry about that. My mic wasn't working for some reason. Can I start? Is everyone ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I'll start my speech in. Okay. In 3, 2, and 1. Okay, panel, a few things in my speech. One, rebuttals why opening government is completely nonsensical in all their arguments and why they don't achieve anything that they are accounting for. And two arguments as well. Number one, irreversible miscarriage of justice and ineffectiveness, right? Let's just deal with OG first. They tell us of this argument across what they're saying, the argument of proportionality, right? But with the Prime Minister, we give you the following examples. When the corruption is in the context of hiring your own cousin who's lesser qualified than the next person, when the context is like evading taxation, where is the proportionality there that justifies you to dealing away with life, right? We think that the spectrum of corruption is too big to simply ascertain to us that the death penalty is a proportional means on all levels of corruption, right? We think that that's completely nonsensical as a whole. And my partner tells you there's no reason enough for you to take away any life, right? But let's look at the proportionality from the DPM of that of genocide and all those things. We think that extensive crimes like of that extent, we don't account for that, and we don't think that's corruption in any way, shape, or form. That's just murder in and of itself, right? But therefore, let's just deal with the other argument of deterrence. That is to say that it will deter other people. We think that people involved believe that they can evade detection, right? That is to say, so the threat of severe punishment or like penalty does not significantly alter behavior, right? This is a majority burden that they fail to prove to us. That extensively, how are you going to change this alternation in behavior? How are you going to change this behavior as a whole, right? We think that the very reason why other crimes still exist, even though you're putting harsher strict, or even though you're putting like death penalties as a whole still exist, is because the very reason why people still do it, they feel like they can evade all detection as a whole, right? So therefore, the other thing that they tell us is the argument of like people will get closure. We think that there's no form of closure that is justified enough to a point where we take human life. Right? We won't kill anyone just to make sure that you're happy or quote unquote found closure, right? We think that with all that said, we can definitely tell that what they said cost them the whole debate. No, thank you. You had your time. Then moving on to my positive matter. One thing, firstly, the argument of irreversible miscarriage of justice. We think that corruption cases are complex, often involved in intricate financial transactions, right? Layers of bureaucracy and sometimes baseless accusations by political rivals, right? We think that in countries with a history of corruption, investigations can be influenced by political biasness, right? And therefore, or flaws in the justice system, making fair trials difficult to guarantee, right? We think even in judicially mature systems, let's just say we're going to take you in a best case and say we're going to contextualize it in judicially matured system. We think that errors can also occur in interpretation, and also evidence gathering and court rulings, right? So therefore, when the penalty is death, there's no chance to rectify those mistakes, right? And the consequences are permanent. Given the nuanced nature of corruption cases, the chance of executing innocent individuals for crimes they don't commit is unacceptably high in this case, right? We think that this consequence runs deeper and then now like counters the principles of justice, human rights, and fairness, which the government plans to uphold, right? What are the impacts of that, right? We think that number one, you have wrongful executions, right? We acknowledge that the justice system, in that sense, in that sense of wrongful executions, we acknowledge that the justice system may struggle to maintain public trust in that sense, right? Because therefore you're like completely killing away innocent lives. We won't trust you as the justice system. This is most likely going to lead to the radicalization of the general society. Even worse in high-profile convictions, right? This lack of trust in the judiciary system may deter potential whistleblowers or like employees or like insiders from coming forward to expose those corrupt practices, fearing that such accusations could lead to like irreversible outcomes without clear or fair evidence, right? We think that even if the evidence is clear, we don't think that when you're potentially like a whistleblower, you necessarily want the person to die, right? We think that you just want them to be held accountable, right? There's a majority burden that they fail to prove as well, that each and every single person that is a whistleblower wants the person that they are accusing to essentially be eradicated off the face of the earth, right? We think that consequently, corruption could become hard, it will essentially become harder to uncover, right? Exacerbating the very problem that their policy is meant to address, right? Second argument of ineffectiveness. We think that the death penalty does not effectively reduce corruption. Corruption is a systematic nuance and a systematic issue, often driven by power imbalances, lack of accountability and poor economic conditions, as my partner already told you. Nathan's characterization becomes essentially important because now we start to understand that without addressing these causes, harsher penalties merely create an environment of fear for these people, right? Who are whistleblowers and all these things, potentially driving corrupt practices underground rather than eradicating them, right? Moreover, we think that implementing the death penalties could prove the way, pave the way for potential abuse, right? With corrupt regimes using it to eliminate opponents under the eyes of anti-corruption of efforts, right? We think that many authoritarian regimes like the EFF in South Africa, Omar Bashiri in Libya or Liberia, I'm not sure, I can't remember the country very well right now, have used harsher penalties to target political enemies rather than achieving the genuine justice within the era committed, right? We think that characterization becomes essentially important because the root causes of poverty are 5 of the following and even more. Number 1, economic inequality and poverty, weak legal and justice systems. Secondly, thirdly, political patronage and cronyism, right? And bureaucracy. No contained mechanism as a whole, just killing each corruption essentially deals with all those root causes of economic inequalities and all those 4 other root causes that I told you. We think that there are better policies that you can essentially put in place. Number 1, increasing judicial independence and legal reform, right? Secondly, strengthening transparency and accountability mechanisms, right? Thirdly, improving public sector salaries and working conditions. Fourthly, implementing whistleblower protection, and as a bonus, strengthening financial regimes and oversight. And another thing that you can do on top of that is harsher sentences. And we also think that even if these policies have a lower chance of addressing these corruption causes, let's just take them at the best case. Let's just say they tell us that, right? We think that we on our side, our policies are better positioned to deal with these causes because they address them at their very root, right? Rather than just ascertaining to us rather that the death penalty is a catch-all solution to all corruption root causes, right? And we think that you just morally unjust. Life is important, even if it doesn't necessarily conform to your ideologies or values, right? With that said, panel, we tell you that our form of better policies actively deal with these cases and deals with the root causes. That's why we essentially win. And everything the government is running, it doesn't work, and we actually achieve that burden better than them. For those reasons, panel, we're very proud to oppose.
Thank you, Dio, for that speech. This marks the end of the opening up to open closing our member of government. When you're ready.
All right, just to confirm, I'm audible.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Just give me a second. Let me set up my timer. Then I can start. Yeah, man. Sorry. Okay, my speech shall begin in 3, 2, 1. All right, in the spirit of the motion, I'll start with a bit of framing. So this House supports the death penalty for corruption. So you need to understand that at the point in time, the death penalty is something that is being used. It's usually for capital punishment. It's not just for small crimes that exist. This is for crimes such as murder, espionage, treason. So when we're talking about these people being convicted for this crime, it's not because you accepted a piece of chicken from someone and then you allowed them inside the door. It's for large-scale crimes, right? And I'll tell you what that severity of harm looks like and why then this provides grounds for justification as to why this is the only way that it will work to deter officials from corruption. So looking at corruption primarily occurs, within systems and regimes where officials within this who oversee any what are they called, different sectors and fields. You have the health sector, you have the infrastructure sector, you have people in charge of the treasury, the different factions of government that exist, right? So when money is looted from these systems, what you're doing is you're capping the government's ability to cater to the needs of its population at the knees, right? So when you look at what effects corruption has had, there's been the public health crisis, right? Where you see the amount of money, for instance, the COVID-19 period, right? The number of vaccines that were stolen and resold, and we never really heard of anyone who, was held accountable as a result of this. This is an example from Kenya, right? So there's like shortage of medical supplies and essential medical supplies, and the people who suffer the most are the people who are the majority within most populations. Even looking at like developing countries, the people who suffer are those people who do not have access or are unable to afford these services, right? So this lack of access to life-saving treatment literally is a literal effect of what corruption does. So in as much as it's not direct murder, this just shows you the extent of harm that corruption can have, right? Because would be considered indirect manslaughter. At the same time, looking at the exacerbation of poverty and starvation within these communities, because at the point in time you are looting from whatever institution you're looting from, these people who are being affected, you're denying them the resources they need to be able to survive. When you siphon billions from poverty alleviation programs, money that is geared towards helping people suffer less. I'll take you in my 4th minute, please. This then channels them deeper into poverty, right? At the same time, at the point you are telling us that the alternative is to have these people imprisoned or have longer term sentences, I think you do not understand the level of power that these corrupt officials usually have. They have the ability and access to resources to be able to manipulate the system from inside in as much as they do from outside. So the level of effectiveness that this sort of approach has does not really exist within this particular world. It also reduces if we, take what is it called? The death penalty as how to go, this will prevent recidivism, because then you reduce the risk that these people will actually come back and reiterate those crimes. At the same time, you reduce their chance of securing a release, either legally or through corrupt means. At the same time, you need to remember the reason why there is no accountability within these systems is because of this very corruption. The problem, the root cause of corruption is corruption. It's the need, considering people are selfish and want to amass property for themselves, and so on and so forth. So this nature of human beings and their selfishness, and particularly those people in power, those people who have access to a large amount of resources, they're able to loot this and have those who are suffering suffer to a larger extent. At the same time, you need to also remember the risk that it poses towards the ability of a country to cater to the security of its people. When you have corrupt officials, this is where you see the selling of state secrets. This is where you see people not having a very swift and accountable way of ascertaining that the people in power will protect them surely. And this is where you have countries suffering from corruption, having civil wars and such things. We have seen the death penalty work, because you look at China. China in the early 2000s was a developing country. Right now, it is one among the world's superpowers, and it has used the death penalty as a high-profile deterrent against corruption. And the country's anti-corruption campaigns have resulted in severe penalties, and there is a buy-in into this because it has been seen to work. Right now, you have officials like the one who was in charge of the FDA in China, Zheng something. He accepted bribes, and that led to health risks. And as a result, China reported a decline in corruption within these sectors, and public campaigns and executions happened to create an environment of heightened accountability. So when you say that accountability is the problem is caused by that corruption that exists within the system. And this is perpetuated from the bottom upwards. This you will see police officers accepting bribes on the road, and roadworthy vehicles getting into accidents and having people lose, lives. And this goes on upwards. So when these people get into office to represent the people, rather than actually choosing to represent those people, it becomes a perpetuation of a system where people still keep stealing from each other over and over again. Shoot your POI.
Okay, you do consider the fact that they have levels of resources to manipulate the justice system, and the fact that it just consider the fact that it's then a dynamo effect, like essentially a lot of people, not just one person, can be able to do this thing, right? So therefore, at that point, it becomes essentially pivotal to keep these individuals to understand how that corruption goes.
Okay, so the fact that they have the ability to perpetuate this and it's not just a single person, we tell you the reason why you have very many people within the state perpetuating this corruption is because there is no system that is actually deterring them from this. What they do believe is that, or rather the people who perpetrate this believe that they are no longer, like they are above the law, basically. The rule of law doesn't apply to them. So in this sense, then you are encouraging them to do it because there is no system that can really hold them. However, at the point in time you put the death penalty in place, when you talk about the potential misuse, we tell you that is not likely because the justice system does not exist within a vacuum. The only way you will be able to punish these people and punish them sufficiently is once you're able to prove this. Of course, there's like a higher burden of proof in comparison to other cases. This is capital offenses. It's not just merely simply because you had that someone stole, you will kill them. No. So the misuse is not something that can be run within this debate. At the same time, this will create efficiency in anti-corruption campaigns, and this is especially true for countries undergoing structural reform. And this is a majority of the developing countries that are still trying to grow their democracy. So this then becomes the ground for installation of a clean start mindset, prompting avoidance from officials. Thanks.
Thank you, member of government, for that speech. Member of the opposition, when you're ready. Member of the opposition. Hassan. I think the member of the opposition. Member of the opposition, when you're ready.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello? Yeah, please, like, I'm in transit. Just give me a minute to look for a place where I can speak without, like, any noise in the background. I'm very sorry.
No worries.
I'm sorry, I'm still looking for a place. I'm very sorry. Come on, I won't start like this. Okay, I think this will be quiet. Hello, sir. All right. Can I be heard?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just give me some seconds to calm down. I just. Man, I can't even see my phone clearly. Okay. All right. So I don't know. Like, can my partner like just like take POIs for both of us? Because I'm really unsettled now. So I don't want like the POI to just affect my entire speech. I'd appreciate if you can wait to ask my partner the POIs. Thank you. Okay. So Chair, can you confirm that I'm still audible?
Yes, you can start.
All right, so this is stretch for 6, stretch for 7 plus 6, that's 13. All right, so I am going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, opening government case primarily hinges on the idea that the death penalty is a justified response to large-scale corruption because it acts as a deterrent, protects taxpayers, preserves democracy, and serves as a form of self-defense for marginalized groups. However, the opening government fails to establish how the death penalty meaningfully addresses the root causes of corruption. Opening opposition keeps calling them out. Nor does this provide compelling evidence that the death penalty effectively detects corruption. Additionally, finally understand that they assume that all instances of corruption warrant the same punitive response, disregarding the complexities and varying degrees of the crime. I think that opening opposition rightly critiques the death penalty's violation of human rights and its inefficiency and its inefficacy as a deterrent. That they were able to cite wrongful execution and alternative punishment as better solutions. We see that all even though they were able to do this, they focus largely on defensive arguments about the value of human life and prison conditions. That's often a proactive mechanism to stop corruption itself. We think that the core of this debate is not merely about punishing corruption, but addressing the systemic structures that perpetuate it. Therefore, panel, this debate should be framed around the effectiveness and consequences of using punitive measures like the death penalty to solve an institutional issue. We need to evaluate whether the death penalty addresses corruption at its roots or exacerbates other societal problems. The real question in this debate is whether a stripping of one's life approach serves justice or merely amplifies the injustice that already exists within the corrupt system. What is the counterfactual in our world and the harms in their world and the harms to understand that in our world, countries that enact harsh punitive measures, including death penalties for crimes, often do not see a significant reduction in corruption. For instance, China executes officials for corruption, yet systemic corruption remains pervasive. This is a response to CG's case. We think that the primary issue is that corruption thrives in environments with weak institutions, poor regulatory frameworks, and opaque governance structures. We think that punishing individuals actually without addressing these underlying factors merely creates a culture of fear, which could drive corruption for further underground and make it more difficult to expose. We think that why the government claims that corruption is always intentional and also deserving of access punishments. It ignores the systemic pressures that push individuals into corrupt practices, such as inadequate wages, nepotism, etc. We think that instead of executing individuals, we should focus on information programs, Twitter to this corruption. First of all, on principle, the right to life should not be subject to state discussion. We see that when a state adopts the death that's some life of societal value. This principle fundamentally undermines human rights, human rights and the rule of law. The state should not have the authority to end violent crimes, even even when those crimes have society. We know that this very same mechanism that leads to corruption, for example, weak legal system will also taint the process of imposing the death penalty. We think that we think that the government side argues that executing corrupt individuals is an act of self-defense for society. However, granting the state the power to kill its citizens for violent crime sets a dangerous precedent, especially in countries with fragile democracies and politicized judicial system. It risks becoming a tool for political attribution rather than an instrument for justice. Just give me a minute to calm down myself. I'm not really calm right now. Just give me a minute, please. I'm very sorry about that. I'm in a very uncomfortable situation right now. I'll just continue my speech. Sorry, let me just take a seconds, please. All right, so I'm going to continue my speech now from where I stopped. First of all, an extension is the deflection for institutional reform. Understand that when the state imposes the death penalty for corruption, it creates an illusion of action. The government can showcase the execution of corrupt officials as a sign of progress, while failing to implement the necessary reforms such as anti-corruption commissions, whistleblower protections, and etc. We think that the death penalty, therefore, serves as a convenient way for government to deflect public scrutiny from their own rules in perpetuating corruption by making individuals the sole targets. The instead avoids accountability for its systemic failures. We think that when the focus shifts to executing executing individuals, public and civil society efforts to push for meaningful anti-corruption legislation and also institutional reforms are weakened. Instead of channeling outrage towards dismantling corrupt systems, they discuss like reverse punitive justice. This approach like risk normalizing corruption as a natural part of society that requires punishments rather than is associated with basically reporting high level corruption. So that first of all, an extension is that the the death penalty will drive corruption further underground. Understand that corruption by its nature involves the consummation of illicit illicit activities. When the death penalty when death penalty is the consequence, those engaging in corruption we adopt more more sophisticated violence and also why some instances of corruption are exposed today is due to like whistleblowers and internal leaks. The death with the death penalty in place, there will be even like more incentive to eliminate to eliminate potential witnesses, which is harmful. Even if like the death penalty determines some individuals, the increased sophistication and violent nature of corruption will result in greater social harm. It will lead to a more entrenched network of crime and a higher likelihood of violence against whistleblowers. What are the, but then what are the better solutions to this debate? One is on whistleblower protection and incentive. We say that first of all, implementing laws that provide whistleblowers is more these individuals to come forward with information with information about corrupt practices without the fear of being basically killed or whatever. We think that from our side we can set up accessible channels for reporting corruption that ensure confidentiality and follow up on leads with serious investigation. But then also with an example is an example in the US, the False Claims Act basically allows whistleblowers to receive a portion of recovered funds, and when they expose fraud against government, we think that this has resulted in billions of dollars being recovered. But then also strengthening the is on strengthening anti-corruption institutional and legal frameworks. Understand that you get more cases from my panel. I'm sorry that my speech was so all over the places. Thank you.
Thank you, member of Up, for that speech. Gavin, when you're ready.
Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just a minute. I try and see if I can get my thumbs. Okay. Right. Assuming I'm still audible, I shall start my speech in in 3, 2, 1. Panel, the side of the house that wins today is the side of the house that recognize and best serve these two things. One, who better serves them at hand, which is corruption, and two, who better caters for the state and its citizen, because we all agree up until this point that the state and its citizen are the most important characters in this debate. At the point where none of the teams at least get closer to this nation, then I think from side CG we had tried to make to get closer to that. All right, let's start from here. who better serves the problem at hand? First, my member had already shown you a very good example where death penalty happens and why it continuously tends to be successful. Because from the first half of the debate, we all just we get questioned like, what is the justification of death penalty? Why should we go so extreme about this thing? Yet corruption at its best is so nuanced that there is no way for us to even have any justification to begin with. At this point, then, when my first speaker, my member comes in and gives an example of China. China, a state that came so far to reach now almost firing USA, one of the superpowers in the world. We tell you then that penalty, even at its like even in the worst scenarios of countries, as in like a country that is still establishing itself, it still works. At the point where then we use China to show you why we think justification of death penalty is sufficient. Then sorry, not start my timer. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. I have no idea how long I have reached, but okay. Anyway, yes. At the point where we have already shown you that, we also went forward to show you that sorry. Yes. I think that answers who better serves the problem at hand. Because the whole discussion so far has been the justification of death penalty, where does death penalty comes in, and why the hell should we go such extreme measures? And we've already, with that example that we want to take, and especially when we're looking at countries that are most affected with corruption, and most importantly tends to be developing countries, seeing that a country that was once developing now in a state that it is, simply because they were able to cater for they were able to punish and thoroughly stop corruption at least to the majority of their ability. Then we show you why death penalty is something that we're willing to support, especially with the contextualization we've given you. Another thing that we also tell you as side CG is that sorry. Okay. Where are the state and citizen most catered for? From our side, we tell you that at worst, we have the government officials having to take accountability. Look at the example that my first speaker had shown you with COVID-19, where we all knew that what's this thing called? The government was looting meds, things that materials that the most common person in the country needed, yet no one was able to give accountability. Right now in Kenya, people have realized that they need to speak up. They were able to stand up and make sure that these government officials are able to get accountability. But that's not it. A lot of if you look at the conversation that's happening, they tell you there needs to be more, because accountability can't just be them just saying, "Oh yeah, we did a mistake," because then it then goes with that opposition is saying that, "Oh, we could give them a better chance. We could give them a chance. We need to have them rehabilitated." But how long has corruption been taking place? Panel, I need you to realize that corruption has not started today. It has not started 5 years ago. It has not started 10 years ago, which then means this is a problem that has forever lasted in our society. If that's the case, then we can then say it is safe for us to say we would rather go the extreme measure to try and attain any type of change than us saying that, oh, we're going to give them a swifter alternative simply because we want to cater for the life that is more sanctity. And that's where we come in, and that's where I come with way. Opening opposition comes in with three things. Come in and talk about immorality, come and talk about sanctity, or going to give us alternative. Morality. One thing that we all need to remember is that morality is shaped by the society. That means that if the society collectively agrees that yes, we would rather have death penalty as something that we would go with, then the issue of this is moral cannot exist. Because again, look, if we go back to the country, to the example of China, that means that society had to change its mentality, and that's why it was even acceptable. Because again, it starts collectively. At the point I will take you, I have no idea what time it is, but I'll try and see if I have time for that. Anyway, back to morality. So at the point where that is now not acknowledged by opposition, simply just coming in and saying that the whole idea of immoral is so heavy burden that we need to consider it. We tell you, if we all see there's a problem with what's currently happening, a society has the right to change, and especially from the state level, because we tell you, and my first speaker correct wonderfully correct character frames this for you when she tells you that corruption is root deep, is in sorry, it's in a large scale. In as much as then once it's very deep, it runs across, that this needs to be taken with severity. When they come in and talk about sanctuary life, I think same thing that I just want to talk about. If collectively we all agree that these people who are so trying to save their lives are not saving our lives, then what the fuck do we need to save their lives for? Because remember, at the end of the day, we want to have our citizens punished with death penalty. I will take the POI. Quickly, please. I have no idea what time I have, how much
Okay,
minutes I
cool.
have.
Even if we are to consider,
Sorry,
okay, even if you consider your
sorry,
example of like China,
sorry,
Oh, it's out of
sorry.
order? Damn.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm sorry about that. So sorry. Oh, see, I mean, anyway, I continue. Alternative or rehabilitation panel. I just told you that corruption has never existed today. It did not start today. It did not start 5 years ago. It did not start 10 years ago. This thing has been there time immemorial. At the point then that we establish that, it tells you the rehabilitation does not work. And even so, if we do concede to them saying we take them to life imprisonment, at the point where we already show you that, oh, don't tell me time is up. Oh my God. Uh, yeah, at the point where we already show you from our side that we are that what's the hell? Oh my God, okay, sure, whatever. With that I rest. I had so much matter to go through. All right,
Thank
it's
you.
fine.
Thank you, Gabriel, for that speech. Up when you're ready. Up when you're ready.
I'm confirming if I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. At any point, if I do break up, please text me on WhatsApp. I'm sorry. Yeah, Hassan, text me on WhatsApp if I break out of the room because my network is a bit shaky. That's why I couldn't ask POIs. But like, I'll take POIs. I'll try and take like one or two. If you have any POIs, just indicate once. Tell me your bench. Tell me you have a POI. Just say it once because I can hear you guys very loud and clear. All right. Um, having said that, I begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Now, panel, the entire benches that have spoken so far have had a bit of problem in and of themselves. How? Firstly, what do you get from government, right? Government tells you that this death, capital punishment, is the only deserving punishment, right? They don't even show how it pragmatically solves the issue of deterrence, right? My partner tells you it can only be solved at the roots, but then they also say it's the only befitting punishment for corrupt individuals. Hence, if we can prove from side CO that it is not a befitting punishment for these corrupt individuals, we win this debate. But then our opening argues that it is wrong to persecute individuals for corruption. Why? Because of the value of life. That was basically their only argument as to why they shouldn't prosecute for politicians for like impoverishing students or impoverishing individuals or citizens in the country. We believe that's a very, very weak impact, and then it's narrowed the entire case. But then we believe we can lay more impact on that in terms of argumentation and rank over them in that particular regard. Hence, we prove two things from side CO in my speech. One, employing this metric of prosecution, that is capital punishment, and create more problems than solutions. It will be integrated in my rebuttals. The second is that it is not a befitting punishment for corrupt individuals, most likely corrupt politicians in this case. Firstly, rebuttals from OG. What do we get from OG? The first thing we get is on the issue of deterrence. My partner has showed you how in countries like China and Taiwan, right? Even as much as they use the capital punishments, they still have so many cases of corruption, right? There was no pragmatic proof from any of the government benches that this will actually detect corruption. They just automatically run that assumption that, oh, it will detect the corruption, no pragmatic proof whatsoever. But then we tell you that its corruption cannot be deterred from the roots, and hence the only form of deterrence you get from gov side is three. One, deterrence from competent. I'll take PI in my 5 minutes. The only form of deterrence you get from side government are three. One, deterrence from competent government candidates. That is to say, because there is like a likeliness for this like investigation of corrupt individuals to like go south, and a wrong individual can be persecuted. Hence, this deters competent individuals from competing for office because of this fear of being wrongfully convicted for corruption. Hence, you detect competent candidates for competing for government powers. The second is that you give those in power a tool to frame rival opposition for corruption so as to eradicate their opposition through death. Hence, you see things like opposition parties or government parties trying to frame the other party of corruption so as to kill them and eliminate competition. The creation of this tool is very problematic. The third is that investigation isn't absolute. That is to say, mistakes can happen in the process of investigation and the wrong person can be convicted. And there is no opt-out mechanism once this individual has been prosecuted. These instances make it very problematic, right? And hence, this is also one of the things that deters individual from even wanting to come out to contest because of this possibility of being framed. I will take in my 5 minutes because of the possibility of being framed and because of the possibility that the investigation can go wrong. Hence, these three mechanisms of deterrence that actually formulate in Gov's world makes it very much more problematic because in any case scenario, right, where they say it deters like corruption in their world, they don't even prove it. But then, even if it deters corruption by a small margin, I've given you three mechanisms of how it provides worsened deterrence that does not even favor the state, and hence you cannot buy that case from the government. The second thing we get from side government is how they talk about the harms of corruption, and the death is the most highest and proportional form of punishment. I'll take PRs in my 5 minutes. Don't you guys speak English? I'll take PRs in my 5 minutes, right? Second thing we get from side government is that they talk about the harms of corruption and that death is the highest and most proportional form of punishment. We acknowledge the harms of corruption, but what we say is that death is not it's not like a unique form of punishment, right? It's not the befitting form of punishment for these corrupt individuals, right? Unlike what our opening wrongs that, oh, they value life, nobody should be killed. We believe that capital punishment should be used in some instances, like when it comes to people that they have direct motive is to kill people, for example, serial killers, terrorists, like most of them, like the capital punishment is employed for those kind of individuals in many countries, right? We don't argue against the capital punishment. What we don't want is this capital punishment for these corrupt individuals. Why? Because corrupt politicians, they deserve to go through something similar which they have inflicted upon individuals in society. And only prison, 5 minutes, please. I'm begging you, 5 minutes. This is my 4th minute. Corrupt politicians deserve to go through something similar they've inflicted upon individuals in the society, and prison systems can offer this. How? Notice you don't get this from our opening. How does prison system offer a similar infliction of corruption pains upon these politicians or corrupt individuals when they are convicted? Firstly, all their properties are seized. Hence, they have no access to resources to even buy preferential treatment in prison that government tries to argue, right? Hence, they become nothing full, they have nothing to themselves. The second is that they have harsh environments to live in, right? Because they embezzle funds, like there's no access to healthcare. Because of the embezzle funds meant for healthcare, meant for amenities in the society, they expose minorities to harsh conditions to live in. Hence, when they're in prisons, they're also exposed to those same harsh environments to live in. Why? Because in prison, the two most hated crimes are rapists and corrupt politicians that are treated worse in prisons. Hence, they would spend the entirety of their life in prison under a very, very strenuous condition from these prisoners, right? Because the counterfactual is this life imprisonment without parole. So they can get as much as 30 years in that prison. But their harsh environments, they are going to face the harsh conditions from these individuals. I'll take you in a bit. The harsh environment and the harsh conditions which they are going to face from these like prisoners as a result of the hatred that prisoners have for corrupt politicians is something that is going to make their life worse. And it's the same thing as the harsh environment that the minorities face, that they expose those minorities to. The third thing is loss of power. They are treated as lesser citizens. They are being told when to wake up, when to sleep, when to eat. Their food is not even as rich as what they had. They are given orders by a mere security guard, which is similar to how they treat minorities in status quo and impoverish them of proper amenities. And hence, they get that same treatment in prison. But then, what does the life after prison looks like, right? One, they are a disgrace to the society, right? They are left with nothing because all their properties are seized. There's a stain on their record, which leaves them hopeless and makes it hard for them to even get a job, save up their lives, or even walk freely on the street because individuals know them as a disgrace and a thief. It's out of order. I'm very sorry I couldn't take you. It's out of order. I'm very sorry I couldn't take you. right? And then this after effect of freezing, they are left hopeless because they stand on their record and they can no longer have access to these resources to self-actualize and whatsoever. They can't take whatsoever. They can't even walk freely on the streets because everybody knows they are a thief, etc. These are the deserving punishments that a politician must go through to feel the same, a corrupt politician must go through to feel the same effects of corruption they are giving upon these citizens. Giving them death is not sufficient enough, right? That is a quick punishment. They don't deserve that kind of punishment. They deserve something that is continuous, a continuous strain, a continuous feel of the conditions they subjected individuals to. And in terms of closure, right, individuals will feel more closure when they know that these individuals are going through far worse conditions in the prison, being treated harshly by those prison inmates for those 30 years. And the fact that they will live a very hopeless life when they come out of prison, we believe that this life imprisonment without parole offers a far worse punishment than a quick fix that death does. Death is not a quick fix. Death is too quick for closure or reparation. It is freedom for life in the case of corrupt politicians. Hence, why do we win? One, broader impacts, and we mechanize how corrupt individuals can be deservingly prosecuted, unlike our opening. Secondly, we show you that death is not sufficient for corrupt politicians and doesn't provide the deterrence that government talks about, proud to oppose.
Right. Thank you all for that speech, and thanks to everyone for the good debate. Just checking if you guys are okay moving to Discord for OA. It just give me like 5 to 10 minutes, mostly 5 minutes. But if you guys can join Discord instead for OA, I think that would be great. If everyone is good with that, I will just check with closing government because they will.
So my partner who could have used Discord is unfortunately not here, so I'm the only one.